What's up, everybody? Ryan Hickey here. Will the Baltimore Ravens make the playoffs? A question I thought was an easy yes, even up until 2 weeks ago. But now as we watch the Ravens more and more, that answer is starting to change to a no for me. So I'm very curious your thoughts. Will the Ravens make the playoffs, yes or no? Comment below, I'd love to hear your thoughts. For me, why I changed my answer from a yes to now a no is because really for the most part, my faith in the Ravens has been rooted in perception, not reality. It's taken me 11 weeks to realize it, but that perception I had about the Ravens in 2020 was that they would mirror their 2019 selves. They are very similar offensively, especially personnel-wise. They have a lot of players from last year's team on this year's team. So I thought eventually they would figure it out. Talent would win out in the end. But here we are, after losing to the Titans, as the Ravens sit at 6-4 in the season on the outside looking in of the playoff hunt in the AFC. For me, the perception is that they will never meet their reality, which was that 2020 is not going to be anywhere near what 2019 was looking like. Statistically, that's going to be the case. Mentality-wise, that's going to be the case. We'll start with the stats first. This Ravens team is not going to match up the Ravens production they put up on offense last year. A few examples. Yards per game. This year, the Ravens are 22nd in the NFL in yards per game average. Last year, they were second. So getting way less yards this year than they were last year. How about rushing yards per game, right? That is really where the strength of the Ravens offense lies in running the ball efficiently. They're still first in the NFL in yards per game on the ground, just like they were last year. The difference, though, is the amount of rushing yards they're gaining per game. Last year, they're averaging 206 rushing yards per game. This year, the number, 164. Over 40 yards of offense less on the ground this year than last year. That's setting up problems for the passing game, that's setting up problems for the running game, and thus that is allowing less points to be scored. Last year, the Ravens were first in the NFL in points per game scored, 33.2 points per game they averaged. This year, 27.1, that's 12th in the NFL. Essentially a full touchdown less worth of points this year than last year. So compared to last year, the Ravens are scoring less points, rushing for less yards, and gaining less yards overall per game than they did in 2019. Another stat that really has to have you concerned if you're a Ravens fan. The first 21 times in Lamar Jackson's career, the Ravens took a double-digit lead at any point in the game. You know what the record was? 21-0. They never lost a game in which they had a double-digit lead with Lamar Jackson at quarterback. This year, the last 3 times they've taken a double-digit lead, the Ravens have lost the last 2. 2 of the last 3 games, they've lost a double-digit lead, whereas they won the first 21 times they had a double-digit lead with Lamar Jackson at quarterback. They cannot get leads, and when they do, they can't hold them. The offense isn't working, the defense isn't working, they're not on the same page. That is bad news for Baltimore. Here's my other concern with the Ravens. It seems like their problems go beyond the stat sheet. Their confidence is shook, and they haven't been able to get it back yet. Sunday was the perfect example of this. So they were playing the Titans. If you remember, the Titans were the team that eliminated the Ravens last year in the playoffs. They punched them in the mouth, the Ravens were not able to punch back, and they flat out embarrassed Baltimore in the playoffs. So this is a game with both teams kind of on the fence of making the playoffs or not. This is a game the Ravens could cement their playoff hopes and really put the Titans on the edge of missing the playoffs with the win. So getting revenge from last year's loss and also putting the Titans on the brink of missing the playoffs this year should have been enough motivation for the Ravens to get fired up for this game. If that wasn't enough, before the game on Sunday, the Titans had a pregame meeting on the Ravens 50-yard line, dancing on their logo. John Harbaugh wasn't happy about it. Some of the Ravens players weren't happy about it. But after the game, Lamar Jackson said basically the Titans wanted it more than the Ravens. What? So if you couldn't get fired up because you were facing the team that knocked out of the playoffs last year, you have a chance to put the Titans on the brink of missing the playoffs this year, and not to mention before the game, they are dancing on your logo in a disrespectful way, and you still can't get fired up, don't have the motivation, don't have the will to want more than the Titans. That is a major, major concern, but the psyche of the Ravens is not what it was last year. So sure, their schedule is manageable going forward, right? They play the Steelers, the Cowboys, the Browns, Jaguars, Giants, Bengals. Sounds like a lot of wins in that schedule. But you know what? Because the problems go beyond the stat sheet, and they have their own problems with stats compared to last year's team and this year's team, I am not buying into the Ravens as a playoff team. For me, their mentality is not there. Their confidence looks shook. Their offense can't figure out how to get on the same page, and I don't think these problems are getting solved within the next 5 or 6 games. For me, the Ravens, I think, will miss out on the playoffs. Again, comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Will the Ravens miss the playoffs, or will they make the playoffs?